Hello there, my name is Artie, and yes, I've been gone a little while, but that's because I've been working on something big. If you've been following the channel for a little while, you'll know that I'm a huge fan of tabletop role-playing games, mostly GURPS, the generic universal role-playing system. So, after ages of simply playing TTRPGs, I decided to try my hand at making one. Here's how I did, and how you can play it for yourself for absolutely free. So, allow me to firstly provide a little bit of background context. A few years ago, I got really into Fallout, and because I'm really normal, I was unable to play any of the newer games until I'd played the originals first. For most people, this would probably have put them off the whole franchise. The original two Fallout games were late 90s computer role-playing games, with a much slower turn-based combat system in comparison to the real-time first-person shooter action of the newer Bethesda games. Fallout 1 and 2 used an RPG system heavily based on pen and paper TTRPGs. Fun fact, actually, the games were originally supposed to have GURPS as its underlying game system, but Interplay, the developers, couldn't secure the rights to it as Steve Jackson Games, the guys that made GURPS, were concerned about the amount of blood and gore, as if GURPS doesn't have enough of that already. Anyway, they couldn't get GURPS as the system for Fallout, so they decided to make their own, the Special System. This absolutely genius acronym describes the base stats of your character: strength, perception, endurance, charisma, intelligence, agility, and luck. Unlike in GURPS, where you get to choose which skills you want, Fallout also opted for a slightly more D&D-like system, where you have every skill by default, and just have a different skill level in each depending upon your special stats. I really enjoyed playing the first two Fallout games, and I absolutely loved the special system in this form. So I decided to try and transform it into a pen and paper RPG. This is where my project started. My initial idea for this TTRPG was called RPG 100, thanks to its use of a D100, or percentile dice, instead of the traditional polyhedral set. It would use an archetype almost identical to Fallout, and I would create the first prototype character sheet inside of Excel. As you can see, it's really information dense, but does work surprisingly well for something made inside of Excel. You put all your base stats and stuff in this setup page, and then it gets transferred to the character sheet page, doing all the calculations for your skill levels in between. It's great. Problem was, I got to making the items for the game, and then just gave up. My idea was to have a similar concept to GURPS, where the system could be applied to almost any genre you might want. To do this, I introduced eras, points in time ranging from the Stone Age to the far future. Problem being, I'd have to make loads of items for each era, and I really did not want to. So yeah, I just gave up. That was until about a month or so later when I had another idea. See, my friends and I had previously been working on a world for a video game which never ended up being made, so I decided to pick that world back up and repurpose it for my TTRPG. This way there would only be one era, meaning I don't have to make as many items, and I'd get to do some large-scale world building, which I love. So, introducing Casuterra. Like I said, this was a world which was originally made to be used in a video game we had an idea for. Unfortunately, we quickly gave up with that, but I still really wanted to do something with all my world building, so I repurposed it and expanded the world for this RPG, having the game be exclusively set there. So, let's talk about the world. Casuterra is a vast planet, seemingly mostly covered in ocean. One quadrant of the planet, known as Casuterra proper, is the only known habitable land, and thus is where all of civilization resides. This quadrant contains 5 major islands: the luscious green island, which serves as the life-filled heart of Casuterra proper, and is home to many species; the humid Macquarie Island, with its rich mines, home to the dwarven population; the touristy Sandbar, home to ancient pyramids and the Fasca species; the chaotic Eskom Isles, comprised of our tundra, Snowmond and the Snowball, and home to drifters and golems; and finally, Meteor Beach, a cosmically radioactive asteroid which crashed into the planet many years ago, home to the mutated Amorites. Casuterra is home to a variety of species, ranging from goblins to goobers to golems. In total, there are 9 species which you're able to play in the TTRPG. First off, we have the simple Manish, the most common species across Casuterra thanks to their adaptability. They can almost instantly adapt to any and every environment, and so have spread quickly across the lands. They're characterised by soft, squishy flesh, which protects them from fall damage, but makes them extra vulnerable against sharp weapons. Next up, there's the Flavoblob, the first species on Casuterra, formed when an asteroid containing trace amounts of bacteria hit the surface of the land and reacted with the soil, eventually growing into this, a tall yellow blob with thick and leathery skin. Flavoblobs are naturally skilled at archery, and thanks to their thick skin, they're also often used as melee-focused soldiers. Then we have Amarits, small, grey, ghostly creatures that are commonly found inhabiting Green Island. Thanks to their ghostly properties, Amarits are skilled in stealth and are naturally agile thanks to their ability to alter their shape slightly. Now for Goobers, small, jelly-like blobs of gel which mostly inhabit Green Island. They're able to manipulate their form, similarly to Amarits, though they have significantly more control over their form, allowing them to split into smaller beings or absorb objects. Next up, we have Dwarves, small, hefty humanoids which mostly reside on Macquarie Island thanks to its lucrative mines and higher temperatures, making for a more comfortable lifestyle. For dwarves, that is. Dwarves are naturally gifted at mining, and thanks to their years in the mines, they've also developed a sort of night vision which allows them to see significantly better than average in the dark. Then there's Faska, humanoid creatures seemingly covered in bandages from head to toe. In actual fact, this isn't the case. These bandages are actually thin tendrils which can be individually controlled by the Faska, allowing them to trap their enemies. Faska also have brute strength at the cost of not really being able to use weapons without lots of training. In addition, they are completely unable to swim and have slightly below average intelligence. There are also golems, huge hulking creatures made of living rock. They're unable to speak with anything other than golems due to the language being something that only golems can interpret. However, they understand most languages. In the middle of their face, they have a singular glowing eyeball which can charge up energy to blast out a powerful but very exhausting to use beam which can damage many opponents. Next, we have Drifters, incredibly fast but armless creatures which mostly dwell upon the archaic Eskim Isles thanks to their love of chaos. Their skin is made of thousands of small, sharp crystals, allowing them to stab their enemies using their momentum for extra damage. Unfortunately, their lack of arms means they find it very difficult to wield weapons. Finally, there are Duks, a race of slightly larger than average intelligent ducks with a language that encompasses all Casuterran dialects, allowing them to communicate with anyone and everyone, more or less. Ducks are also naturally charming, however they're slightly weaker in combat thanks to their small size. They can still hold swords though. Don't ask how. Each species has its own specific bonuses and weaknesses which you'll apply to your character when you play the game. For example, Manishers take 10% less damage from blunt force objects like warhammers, but 10% more damage from sharp objects like swords. There are also smaller species across Casuterra, ones which aren't necessarily intelligent enough to merit being playable in the TTRPG. Species like goblins, unremarkable little things that tend to group together into clans to make up for their lack of prowess in, well, anything. There are also plebeians, creatures made of giant fungus which can release poisonous spores, damaging their opponents. Now that we've gone over the world a bit, let's have a quick overview of the basic rules of the TTRPG. Like I mentioned earlier, it's all based on a D100, or the percentile dice, and throughout the game you'll be making skill checks where you're attempting to roll lower than your given skill level. So the higher your skill level, the higher your chance of success, and vice versa. There are 14 skills in total, all of which your character will have proficiency in at some level right from the get-go. At character creation, you'll be able to allocate a number of points to your base stats: strength, constitution, dexterity, intellect, and charm, which will in turn provide you with your skill levels. For example, higher strength means you'll have higher proficiency in the fisticuffs, melee weapons, archery, and intimidation skills. On top of that, you can also assign your character a specialty skill upon creation, meaning they'll instantly get a plus 20 in that skill. There are also species bonuses to consider, which will give you buffs depending on your species, as well as frameworks, which give you a buff to one thing and a debuff to another. So yeah, The biggest part of the game is making skill checks. The other biggest part of the game, though, is combat. Whilst most of your skills will have applications outside of fighting, a number of them are almost exclusively used for beating up others. In combat, you'll usually be making fisticuffs, melee weapons, or archery checks in order to hit your opponents. Then you'll be rolling for damage, determined by either your melee damage stat or the given damage of your weapon. The TTRPG uses a number of unique systems to make the combat super streamlined and easy to keep track of, especially for your GMs, who should only really need to keep track of an enemy's health. I'll leave my description of the rules there for now, but let's talk about how you can read more and play the game for yourself. Casuterra, the D100 role-playing game, has been in the works for a while now. Myself and my team probably started in March and have been working hard ever since to develop the rules, the world, and everything in between. Of course, this is still a huge undertaking. Like, seriously, balancing stats is way harder than it looks. And the game has only really been in alpha stage up until this point. That said, as soon as this video goes up, the basic resources you need to play the game, the rulebook, the bestiary, and the character sheet templates, will be available on this website in their beta stage, now for free. Link will be in the description below. And please, keep that beta thing in mind. Whilst the rules are mostly fleshed out, we still have a lot of work to do on balancing the enemies and stuff. So if you have any suggestions, go ahead and join the Artie's Lobby Discord server, link also in the description, and leave them there. Any help is appreciated. As for our plans for the game, we plan to keep working on it as consistently as possible, and hopefully updates shouldn't be too sparse. I'll be keeping a dev blog over on the Casuterra section of Content Unavailable, and we'll update that as frequently as I can to keep you all in the loop. Right now, we have a couple of ideas that we want to see fleshed out before a full release. Most notably, I'm working on some campaign documents, which will give you everything you need to run a simple campaign set in the world of Casuterra. On that topic, I'm planning on gathering a few friends and running a digital campaign which you'll all be able to watch here on my channel. Overall, loads of exciting stuff happening, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where this is going. Thank you all very much for watching. Please do go ahead and give Casuterra a shot, and I'll see you at some point in the future. Goodbye.